Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a junior legal researcher or, anyone out there auditing departmental compliance, you already know administrative law can be, well, a bit of a maze. Today, we're tackling something absolutely crucial, yet honestly frequently misunderstood, the post-based reservation roster. We're going to build out a practical operational flowchart right from the foundational Department of Personnel and Training guidelines. So let's get into it and turn all that dense legal text into a clear step-by-step system you can actually use. Okay, so to really understand the flowchart we're building, we've got to start right at the bedrock. This comes from the landmark 1995 Supreme Court judgment in our case, Sabharwal. This single ruling basically reshaped how we calculate quotas. The court made it crystal clear, reserved points are strictly for reserved categories. But, and this is key, a reserved candidate can absolutely compete for a general non-reserved post. And if they get it, their number isn't added to the reservation percentage limit. That right there is the legal boundary we're operating within today. Let's quickly run through our flowchart agenda for today. 1. The roster paradigm shift. 2. Setting up separate rosters. 3. Cadre strength and adjustments. 4. The merit candidate exception. 5. Navigating small cadres. And 6. The 50% cap. All right, Section 1. The roster paradigm shift. Moving from vacancies to posts. For the longest time, the system operated on a vacancy-based roster. It just endlessly calculated percentages on every single new batch of openings. But the DoPT guidelines, following that Sabharwal judgment, really changed the game. Think of a cadre kind of like a giant parking lot. To make the transition to the new system, you first have to verify that the exact prescribed percentage of reserved parking spaces is currently filled. And once you verify that, you officially stop those old vacancy calculations and shift entirely to the post-based roster. From that moment on, no more calculating new percentages. We're just replacing like for like. Which brings us to the actual definition of post-based replacement. Once our parking lot has hit its required quotas, any vacancy that opens up, whether someone retires, resigns, gets promoted, whatever, it has to be filled by a person from the exact same category that just vacated the spot. So, a general category employee leaves, a general category employee replaces them. A reserved employee leaves, a reserved employee replaces them. It's a simple, elegant mechanism to ensure the prescribed percentage is perfectly maintained over time, without all that endless recalculating. Moving on to Section 2, setting up separate rosters. Defining the operational base. Now, this is where precision really matters for you as a legal researcher. First up, you have to define the cadre. Normally, a cadre just means the number of posts in a grade, right? But for this specific roster, it is defined by the mode of recruitment dictated by the rules. Because of that, you can't just lump everyone together into one big list. You have to create completely separate rosters. You'll need one for direct recruitment and a totally distinct roster for promotions, assuming, of course, that reservation applies to those promotions. Mixing those two up, that's a major procedural error. Okay, write this one down in bold because it is absolutely crucial. Rosters are strictly an aid to determine the entitlement of different categories to their reserved quotas. That's the whole shebang. They are not to be used to determine employee seniority. Conflating roster points with seniority rankings is honestly a super common trap in administrative audits. Don't fall for it. The DoPT guidelines explicitly forbid it. Section 3. Cadre strength and adjustments. Expanding and contracting the flowchart. Remember, a roster is a living document. It's not static. Think of this like a rapid-fire decision tree. If the cadre strength goes up, your roster has to expand with it. If the department downsizes and the cadre decreases, the roster contracts. And what if the recruitment rules change? Like, say they shift the proportion of posts filled by direct recruitment versus promotion. Well, then you have to immediately adjust the proportions in your separate rosters to match. The roster always has to flawlessly mirror the current legal shape of the cadre. Section 4. The merit candidate exception. The human variable. Now, as an auditor, you're definitely going to see this exact scenario in a file eventually. What happens when a candidate who belongs to a reserved community is appointed strictly on their own merit? I mean, they didn't utilize the reservation quota at all. Take a second to think about how that actually impacts the math. This is where that Supreme Court mandate from the beginning comes into play beautifully. Candidates appointed on their own merit occupy unreserved points on the roster. They literally must not be shown against reserved points. Their appointment completely bypasses the reserved quota count, which is great because it leaves those reserved points open for other candidates from that community who actually do require the aid of the reservation. All right, Section 5, Navigating Small Cadres. Edge cases in the system. 13. That right there is your magic number. Under the DoPT guidelines, a small cadre is legally defined as any cadre with up to 13 posts. And when you hit this threshold, that standard post-based replacement system we talked about, it needs a slight modification just to keep things fair. So for these small cadres of up to 13 posts, all the posts are earmarked on the same pattern as the model rosters. Initial recruitment, super straightforward. It's filled by the earmarked category. But for incumbent replacement, we don't just do strict like for like. Instead, we use horizontal rotation. Let's say a general category employee leaves post number 1. You don't automatically drop another general candidate in there. You actually look horizontally at the rotation to see whose category is technically next in line. This rotational method is really clever because it stops smaller departments from getting indefinitely locked into one single demographic configuration if their turnover happens to be low. Finally, Section 6, the 50% cap, the golden rule. This is the absolute, unbending rule of the entire post-based system. The guidelines are crystal clear. On no occasion, and I mean no occasion, can the percentage of reserved category candidates exceed 50%. That cap is the hard, unbreakable ceiling of this entire framework. And this rule acts as an absolute override switch for everything we've built so far. Imagine you're managing a small cadre, right? And that horizontal rotation method dictates the next open slot should be a reserve point. But filling that reserve point would push your total reserved representation over that 50% cap. What do? Well, the guidelines say you just skip the relevant reserve point that came up in the rotation. The 50% cap overrides everything else. Maintaining that balance is the absolute paramount goal. So as you wrap up and head back to your case files, I want to leave you with this question to guide your next audit. Does your department's current administration actually reflect a post-based parking lot where like replaces like, or are you still incorrectly calculating those outdated percentages on every single vacancy? If you apply this flowchart, enforce the 50% cap, and respect the merit exception, you're going to navigate these rosters with total confidence. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the right questions.